The day the college entrance exam ended, the school bell pulled me into that small grove in front of the entire class. While I was still confused, she suddenly kissed me. The unique taste of a young girl spread through my mouth. Then her voice choked, and she said, "Xia, I'm ready to give you my heart and my entire future, as long as you agree to one thing, my life is yours, too." She surprised me. It turned out it was all because her mother was ill and urgently needed 600,000 rupees for surgery. Although as if 6 lakh rupees is just half a month's pocket money for a rich underachiever, yet I rejected her without a second thought because the heart of an A school top student, Belle, seems very precious. Unfortunately, I don't believe in love. My parents could have married for the sake of family interests and maintain the image of a model couple for more than 20 years. Do they have a heart? Maybe, but they have given their hearts to outsiders. So don't talk to me about your heart. I don't believe in it. I stood up straight and walked towards her. I walked in front of her. I was a head taller than her. I could clearly see her trembling eyelids and the tears glistening on them. I extended my hand. She stiffened and unconsciously closed her eyes. My finger gently brushed her forehead. Binding was stunned. She opened her eyes and stared at me blankly. I pulled my hand back. I looked Binding straight in the eye and said word for word, "Binding, get this straight. Do you want me to be a scumbag who takes advantage of someone's misfortune? Or do you want me to be a good person, show some compassion, and help you?" She was completely shocked. She was staring at me blankly. Her mind was clearly short-circuiting, but I was so patient just looking at her. Like that. Finally, she reacted. Her tense shoulders immediately relaxed. A tiny glimmer of hope flashed through Binding's mind. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing. "Please, I'm begging you." I shook my head decisively. "No way. I'm not a philanthropist. Even though I should have a lot of money, I won't spend it on frivolous things. After all, 600,000 is enough to buy me dozens of Napoleon cats." Her pleading eyes immediately turned to despair. Seeing her on the verge of collapse, the little wicked interest I had in my heart also faded. I changed my tone. "But regardless, I don't want to be the bad guy or the good guy. We can do business together. I remember that your academic performance is not bad. Therefore, your future can be considered a potential stock. I can lend you money as a personal investment. 600, I can transfer it to you right now." His eyes immediately lit up with incredible joy. "But I have one condition. You have to pay me back 1 million in 10 years. The interest rate isn't high. It shouldn't be difficult for you. Also, you have to take the college entrance exam a month from now to get into Tsinghua or Peking University. This is the first step to proving you have the ability to repay the loan, and this. There's also a risk control clause for investments." She was like someone just drowning, clutching at a straw. She immediately started shaking her head, frantically afraid I might change my mind. I gave her my phone number, then turned and left, not bothering to look at her expression. As I emerged from the small grove, the sunlight fell on me, which was warm. Actually, I didn't care at all whether she would return my money or not. 600,000 was really nothing to me. The contract, the terms were just for show. Otherwise, everyone would be running to borrow money from me, and no amount would be enough. Spending 600,000 rupees for a little smugness from a good deed and a closer look at Belle's frustrated state wasn't a bad deal. After speaking with a lawyer, I set a time and place, forwarded the contract to Binding Bing, and that was it. I headed toward my original destination, a club activity room. Through the window, I could see the scene inside. My childhood friend, Lu Yuan, was chatting animatedly with a feather-looking boy. The Lu family and my family can be considered friends for generations with close business ties. So, Lu Yuan and I were also considered childhood friends. That wasn't an issue. Mainly, it was Lu's older sister, Lu. Xiu, who was a truly proud woman, beautiful and ruthless. Most importantly, she treated me very well. Every time she gave me pocket money, it was millions. For someone as good for nothing as me, she was a very kind person. It was a walking ATM. Besides, Lu Qingshu was engaged to my senile older brother, Jiang Ling. So, in the future, she would officially be my sister-in-law, making us even closer. My decadent life was even more secure. But recently, due to some mischief, Lu's grades had dropped from a stop to a low average. Because of this, Qingshu had specifically asked me about the situation. So, I knew I had to get involved. After all, if you borrow money from someone, you have to help them a little. Before I opened the door, I bumped into a boy running outside. He stumbled back 2 steps. His eyes were filled with humiliation and hatred. I recognized him. He looked like a poor student that Lu Yuan used to sponsor. His grades were excellent, and he was an honest person. Seeing this, it was probably that classic drama about me falling in love with my benefactor. But my benefactor is in love with a feather. I shook my head, feeling a little amused. This kid is so young. When rich people like us can afford to do things, when we spend, it's often just a habit, a way to show off our status. It doesn't mean we're good people. If you're truly grateful, work hard to be successful and repay them with benefits. This is how we deal with people. Bringing emotions into it is just asking for trouble. I ignored him and pushed the door open. Lu Yuan was talking to Tong Long and laughing loudly. When she saw it was me, Lu Yuan's smile froze. Her eyebrows immediately furrowed and her voice filled with defensiveness and impatience. Jiang Xiaoyu, what are you doing here? Have you also come to convince me to break up with Brother Long? Let me tell you, don't waste your breath. A useless young master like you in the Jiang family can't even manage his own life. What right do you have to interfere in my life? I'm not angry. I just found it a little funny. I'm not interfering. I'm just curious. That good little girl from the Lu family, who always followed the rules, is suddenly attracted to this type of guy. How did you get into this? Lu Yuan raised her voice with a look of hatred. What do you know, Brother Long? He's not like those pretentious rich kids. Like you. He lives authentically. He lives freely. He held Tong Long's hand. That's what living is. Your cookie-cutter life is boring. It's a waste of life. With that, she began attacking me. Especially you, Jiang Xiaoyu. You're neither good at studies nor at sports. What else do you have besides being part of the Jiang family? You're completely, from head to toe, you're useless. I nodded with a look of sudden realization. I get it. It's the breeze of youth, isn't it? Lu Yuan probably thought he'd convinced me. A smug look came over his face. Tong Long puffed out his chest as well. He wasn't looking at me with the same fearful eyes he had before. The next second, I looked down at Lu Yuan from above. The intoxication had worn off. Before my eyes, he unconsciously took a step back. Tong Long was still writhing on the ground, looking at me with fearful eyes. I went over to Tong Long. Don't you like being authentic? Feel free. Come on. Tell me how you feel. Right now? Feel free. Tong Long was in a lot of pain. He was sweating. He couldn't utter a word. Lu Yuan tried to pull me away, but my stare forced her to back down. Aren't you tough enough? Why are you silent now? She was trembling. She didn't even dare to kiss. I lost interest immediately. With so little courage, you dared to trap a rich girl. I dragged a shivering Lu Yuan straight to the notorious rough area west of town. I dragged Lu Yuan out of the car and pinned him against the wall of a dirty alley. The acrid stench of urine and rotting garbage hit me in the face. Lu Yuan vomited on the spot. I pointed to some blonde, feathered man at the end of the alley, cursing. My voice was as cold as ice. See, this is the air of youth you love so much. Authentic enough for you. Free enough for you. If you like it, I'll give it to you. Right now, I'll throw it there. Lu Yuan immediately turned pale with fear. She held my hand tightly and began to sob. I made a mistake. Jiang Xiaoyu, let's go home. I'm begging you. Just then, I noticed a familiar figure. It was Tong Long. He was limping and, while I wasn't paying attention, he quietly slipped away from the other end of the alley. I didn't bother to chase him. This kind of person wasn't worth my second attempt. Lu Yuan clearly saw him, too, and her face turned ashen white. Her fantasy, the last hope, was completely shattered. With that fleeing figure, she stopped crying. She just stood there numb as if her soul had left her. I put her in the car, and she didn't say a word the entire way. When the car arrived in front of the Lu family's house, she opened the door herself and slowly walked in. I didn't get out of the car. I just told the driver to turn the car around and go home. That night, I got a text on my phone. It was from Lu Qingxiu. Gu, thank you. I replied with a "You're welcome" sticker. That was it, and that was it. As expected, for the next 2 days, everything was quiet and peaceful at the Lu house. No one came to trouble me. I knew it was definitely my future sister-in-law, Lu Qingxiu, who was handling it. It seemed my move wasn't wrong. My deceased life was secure. But the next day, I couldn't smile anymore because Tong Long was dead. She died in a car accident. It seems this future sister-in-law of mine is even more ruthless than I thought. I suddenly felt that this house was a little. It's scary. Everyone's wearing an exquisite mask. They ruthlessly eliminate all obstacles in their path. My eldest brother, Shang Lingyan, is like that, and so is my future sister-in-law, Lu Qingxiu. Only I was different, a person who just wants to live life. I suddenly shuddered and sat up in bed. I have to move out of here immediately. I have to get away from these ruthless people. To live the high life, you have to stay alive. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. The next morning, I came downstairs with my packed suitcase. My mother was in the living room. She was elegantly having her morning tea. Seeing me, she just raised an eyebrow indifferently. Her voice was calm. Where are you going? Just sleep. Somewhere else. She didn't ask any more questions. She bent her head and went back to reading a financial magazine. Even my nominal father was nowhere to be seen. The house was as cold as an ice cellar. I dragged my suitcase and left the magnificent villa without looking back. I had a penthouse apartment in the city center that I had bought a long time ago, and now was the perfect time to use it. The apartment was huge and empty, and the refrigerator was empty. I drove to the nearest supermarket. I needed to fill this new home with food and snacks. Pushing my shopping cart, I walked among the fully stocked shelves. I was like a shopping robot, loading it with no emotion. As I turned a corner, I suddenly stopped because in the corner of the snack aisle, I saw a girl discreetly stuffing a packet of bread into her sleeve. She looked a few years younger than me, short in stature, and she was wearing an old uniform. It looked quite clean. The only pity was that her hands weren't so clean. I said nothing. I just stood leaning against the shelf. I folded my hands and watched her with amusement. She was struggling to stuff it in. The sleeves were too short. The bread was too big. She tried again and again. She was so agitated that beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. Finally, as if she realized something, her movements froze and she slowly raised her head. Our eyes met in the air. I looked at her. Without a word, I stared. Within 10 seconds, her face turned visibly red. There was shock in those big round eyes, then panic, and finally a deep sense of shame and humiliation. Her hand holding the bread began to shake uncontrollably. The packet of bread fell to the floor. With a thud, it was as if all her strength had been drained and her whole body went limp. She bowed her head as if she wanted to bury her face in the ground. How boring. I went over there. I bent down to pick up the packet of bread and put it on my shopping cart. Then I casually filled the cart with various cookies and candies from a nearby shelf. Soon my cart was piled like a small mountain. I pushed the cart in front of her. Her Head was still down. Her whole body was tense, as if she were waiting for a decision. I lightly kicked her old canvas shoes with the tip of my shoe and calmly said, I don't have money for food. Her body trembled. Then she shook her head slightly. A second later, as if she remembered something, she shook her head vigorously. I was becoming a little impatient. You're shaking your head both yes and no. Are you trying to make a move on me? What's the matter? My tone was a little harsh. She was so scared of me that she jumped up and jerked her head up. The corners of her eyes were red as she looked at me. Tears were welling up. Her lips moved and blurred. Some sounds came from her throat, and she gestured strangely with her hands. I was stunned. In that moment, a thought came to my mind. Dumb. I looked at her anxious and helpless appearance, and the irritation in my heart vanished. Instantly, she calmed down. I felt remorseful. At that moment, I felt like a real jerk, the kind who would slap themselves twice if they remembered this. In the middle of the night, I said nothing more. I turned to get the second shopping cart and filled it with non-perishable food. Then I pushed both carts away and gestured to her to follow. She still couldn't react. I didn't have time to explain, so I just grabbed her wrist and dragged her to the checkout counter to pay. Then I picked up the big bags while she followed me like a tiny tail. She too was holding some of the lightest bags of snacks. After loading everything into my sports car, I told her to get in. She hesitated for a moment, but then opened the passenger door and got in. Then I asked for her address. She picked up her phone. Her little fingers tapped on the screen for a long time and finally pinpointed a location. It was an old neighborhood, a seedy place I never passed by. I said nothing. I just started the car. She did. The car was eerily silent the entire way. She kept her head down, clutching the corner of her shirt. The car passed through narrow, crumbling streets and finally stopped in front of a 10-minute building that looked like it might collapse any moment. I turned off the engine and helped her carry the groceries out of the car. The corridor was dark and damp, filled with mold and another strange, unnamed smell. She took me to the third floor and opened a wooden door with peeling paint. I caught a strong odor of Chinese medicine. The room was very small, so small that you could clearly see what an empty house looked like. Today was the first time I saw it with my own eyes. A frail, old woman lay on an old wooden cot. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was slow. The girl put down her belongings and ran to the bedside, skillfully covered the old woman with a blanket. Her eyes were filled with worry. I understood. It wasn't that she didn't have money for food. It was that she didn't have money to treat a family member's illness. Perhaps stealing bread was why. Because she was very hungry and didn't want to spend money on her grandmother's medical bills. It was the same sad story again. I hate watching such scenes the most. After caring for her grandmother, the girl came to me. She bowed. Then she took an old notebook from the table and quickly wrote on it. It was a line, written in beautiful handwriting. Thank you. How much money did all this cost? I will definitely pay you back in the future. I found that line a little funny. But, will you pay me back by stealing again? I didn't say anything. I just kept I pulled out my phone and called my family's personal assistant. I spoke briefly on the phone. Help me. Contact the special ward at Laowang City Central Hospital. Send an ambulance to this address, Building 10 in the west of the city, in 15 minutes. They'll send it to you. Charge all expenses directly to my account. The entire process took less than a minute. The girl was completely stunned. Her mouth dropped open. She stared at me blankly. She forgot to cry. She forgot to write. I could understand what she was dreaming of. What would have taken her a lifetime, I had solved with a single phone call. I gently kicked the luggage bag lying near her feet. What are you spacing out? Pack your things and get ready to go to the hospital. She snapped out of her thoughts and immediately started packing in a hurry. There wasn't much to pack, actually. Some old, faded clothes, an enamel mug with a broken handle. The ambulance arrived very quickly. The professional medical staff carefully placed the old woman on a stretcher. From start to finish, the girl held the corner of my shirt tightly, as if she were afraid I would suddenly disappear. Although it was a little awkward, I didn't push her hand away. Everything at the hospital was arranged smoothly. A special ward with 24/7 nursing care. A team of top experts immediately began consultations. I stood outside the bright and clean hospital room, looking at the busy doctors and nurses inside, and the girl at the bedside who looked nervous and grateful. The little sadness I had felt about Tong Long's death vanished. I felt a little less relieved. Money really can buy a good mood. Just then, the corner of my shirt was gently tugged again. She held out to me the torn notebook on which it had been written, "How can I ever repay you for this kindness?" I leaned against the doorframe and looked at the girl. "I'm not saying I want to repay you." She was in a hurry. She wrote very quickly in her notebook. Her handwriting was a little messy, not very clear. "I can't take your money for free. You are a good person." I said those two words. See, a good man. The smile on my lips deepened. In today's times, even a person like me can be considered a good person. Having money is really a great thing. I interrupted her. First of all, I am not a good person. Second, I have already said it. I am the kind of person who hates trouble. You arguing with me here is causing me trouble. Understand? She was a little surprised by my twisted logic. She stared at me blankly, unsure of what to say. I looked at her expression inside. I went to her. "No more nonsense." I took the notebook and pen from her hand and wrote in the notebook, "Just think of this as if I'm buying an insurance policy in advance. Study hard. In the future, get into a good university so that if I ever have bad days and I'm begging on the streets, just remember to give me a bowl of rice." After writing, I handed the notebook back to her. She was stunned for a long time, looking at the words in the notebook. Then, she looked up. Her eyes were as clear as spring water. Finally, tears. It came out. She didn't cry loudly. She just kept crying silently. Each drop fell on that old, torn notebook. I felt a little awkward and looked away. "Okay, don't cry anymore. Your grandmother still needs your care. What's the point of crying like this?" I thought for a moment and continued. "Which school do you go to?" "I'll ask Lao Wang to pay your tuition fees. He'll also transfer 5,000 rupees every month for your living expenses until you graduate from university and get a job. I won't find it. Don't say you don't need it. Consider it an insurance premium." After saying that, I couldn't bear the smoothie scene any longer. I gave the doctor some simple instructions. Then, I turned and left. Driving down the wide road, I suddenly found it a little funny. How could a great second young master like me of the Jiang family ever go through a bad time? It's completely impossible, right? I was just spending money to accumulate some good karma for myself. After all, the people around me, everyone is cunning and scary. I have to accumulate more good karma. Only then can I ensure that a lazy person like me can live the rest of his life in luxury. Then my downfall came 5 years later. Just 5 years later, my seemingly noble and elegant elder brother, Jiang Ling Chun, was sunbathing on a private island. After marriage, when this matter came to light, I even laughed a little when I got the call. It was exactly as I expected. My brother is a weak and fickle person deep inside, yet he likes to pretend to be deeply in love. I will go back and deal with this. I didn't even feel like watching the drama. After all, rich marriages are more or less the same. This continued until my bank cards were frozen one by one. All the properties, stocks, and investment funds in my name changed owners overnight. Only then did I realize something was wrong too late. By the time I fled the island, everything had already been settled. The Jiang Corporation had been renamed Blue. My father was tried for countless economic crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. He faced jail time for the rest of his life. I'll have to spend my days shedding tears behind the wheel of a car. My brother, Jiang Chun, left empty-handed, and I, a useless person who only wanted to be a freeloader, wasn't spared either. All the money I'd painstakingly saved over 20 years was gone. I stood in front of my penthouse apartment, staring at the two expressionless bodyguards blocking my way. My head was spinning. Sister, if you want revenge, then take it. Kill my stupid brother. I have no objection. But you sent my father to jail and killed the Jiang Corporation. Hollowed out. What does that mean? The thought made my blood boil. Was I living in a revenge novel with a female lead, becoming the side character who is easily dismissed? Just then, the door opened. Lu Xingshu was sitting on my favorite Italian sofa, elegantly swirling a glass of wine. 5 years had passed. She looked even more beautiful and cool than before. That powerful aura of control was suffocating. She looked at me and put down her wine glass. Looking at me slowly, she smiled. Xiaoyu, you're back. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. She stood up and walked towards me step by step. She reached out to touch my face. Don't look at me like that. I didn't mean to either. I bowed my head so she wouldn't touch me. She didn't get angry and pulled her hand back. She said softly, your brother is so stupid. I gave him a chance. Unfortunately, he didn't appreciate it. Lu Xingshu shook her head, looking at my expression mockingly. She said, so, that's why? It's because you destroyed our entire family. She paused for a moment. There was a hint of seduction in her voice. But things have changed now. He wronged me before. Now I'm completely justified in taking revenge. I don't want a husband like that. With that, she took a step closer to me, giving me a strong sense of dominance. Ziru, are you interested in living with me? I can take care of you just like before. Hearing that, I laughed until tears welled up in my eyes. I reached out and looked at the corner of my eyes. I looked at Lu Xingshu's flawless and perfect face. Hearing you say that, I'm starting to suspect you sent her away with your own hands. The smile on her face finally froze. Although it only lasted a moment, I still held on to it. The last ray of hope left in my heart vanished. As expected, this woman has been crazy from the beginning. She will stop at nothing to achieve her goals. I held back my smile and looked at her expressionlessly. Then, slowly I gave her the middle finger in contempt. He showed me. The last trace of a smile vanished from his face, replaced by a cold, indifferent indifference. You have no idea how good you are. He waved his hand without looking at me. Again, 2 bodyguards immediately advanced, one on my left and one on my right. They picked me up like a child. I was brutally thrown out of my own house. I stood in that empty hallway. I couldn't help but sneer at myself, wondering if I had really believed his evil words and stayed there when if she got tired of me, I wouldn't even know when or how I died. I know very well that I can't stand her. Even an old fox like my father has been ensnared in her schemes. What do I, a pleasure-seeking hedonist who only knows how to eat and play, have to fight against? Staying away from this psycho is more important than anything. I took out my phone, opened my contact list, and searched for the friends who always called me brother you. I made the first call. Hello, young master. This is Jiang Xiaoyu speaking. Second, there was a cautious silence for 3 seconds. Who is this? Sorry, you dialed the wrong number. The call was disconnected. I was stunned for a moment. Then I laughed to myself. I called another number. The result was exactly the same. The third, fourth were either wrong numbers or no one answered. I leaned against the cold wall and deleted my so-called friends from my phone one by one. After deleting them all, only a few lonely family numbers remained on the screen. I sold everything I owned. In total, I had less than 100,000 yen. I got less. This amount wouldn't have even been enough to cover my drinking expenses for a night. Now it's my entire savings. I was wandering aimlessly on the street. I somehow managed to make it back to my apartment. I couldn't stop laughing bitterly. This won't work. He'll just find a factory to screw up. The requirements there are fewer, and they include food, drink, and lodging. After more than 20 years of affluence, I've lived enough. I bowed my head and kept count as I walked. Then suddenly, I collided with a soft embrace. A light and fresh fragrance wafted in the air. I instinctively wanted to apologize, but as I looked up, I was suddenly met with a pair of clear eyes. It was a girl with a delicate face. She seemed a little familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had met her, but she clearly knew me. I could clearly see the moment in her eyes when she recognized me. A strange joy and relief flooded her face. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but then he realized something. Finally, he just quickly and clumsily pulled a phone from his pocket and typed rapidly on it. The phone screen lit up. "Mr. Jiang, do you still remember me?" I saw those words. Mr. Jiang, very few people call me by that name these days. I looked at his face more closely. The fragments of memory slowly began to come together. Suddenly, I remembered everything. I was a little surprised. That girl, shivering in the supermarket 5 years ago. That girl who lived with her grandmother in that small dilapidated house was taking care of. "It's you." Her eyes instantly lit up with surprise and joy. She nodded her head frantically. Joy seemed to radiate from her clear eyes. I was even more confused. "What are you doing here?" She typed quickly again and turned the phone towards me. The screen read. I saw the news about the Jiang family situation. "I was very worried about you. I guessed you might come to check on me, so I've been waiting here since yesterday." Something hit my heart. In other words, for the 24 hours since I was evicted, she had been waiting below the apartment I couldn't even go to. The most clumsy way to wait for an uncertain possibility. A strange and complex emotion surged through me. While my so-called friends were busy breaking up with me, a young girl I'd almost forgotten had been waiting for me here all day and night. I tried to speak. She must have noticed my embarrassment. New words on the phone screen. "You appeared. Don't you have anywhere to go?" I remained silent, which was taken as a silent admission. He hung up his phone. Then he did something I hadn't expected. He reached out and gently pulled at the sleeve of my hoodie. His grip was very light. I could have easily freed myself, but that pleading grip on the sleeve was like an invisible chain preventing me from moving. He turned me around and led me to the corner of the street. As if I was possessed, I didn't resist and simply followed him. We passed a small shop. We arrived. A warm light emanated from the storefront of the bakery. It was called Little Light Bakery. The shop was closed, but the lights in the display case were still on. She opened the door with her key. Then she turned back and beckoned me in. The shop wasn't large, but it was clean and orderly. The scent of butter and wheat filled the air from under the counter. She pulled out a carefully laminated folder, from which she pulled out a yellowed piece of paper and placed it before me. This was the insurance. There was a clause I had hurriedly written 5 years ago. "If I ever have a bad day and I'm begging on the streets, just remember to give me a bowl of rice." She pointed to the words written on it, then to me, then to herself, and to this bakery. Her eyes were so serious, as if she were fulfilling a sacred contract. Finally, she turned and took a still warm croissant from the oven and offered it to me. There was no pity in it. There was no sympathy, just the truth that it was my turn. I took the bread and took a bite. Taste. Although it wasn't like the high-end food I used to eat, it had a comforting feel. "Are you guys still hiring staff?" The girl was stunned for a moment, then a brilliant smile blossomed on her face. She nodded her head like crazy. That day, the blurry first part of my life ended, and the second part of my life became connected to this little bakery, called Little Light. We were inextricably linked, and my boss was the dumb girl I thought I'd never see again. I won't be able to see her. A girl named Sue. With the money I sponsored her with and her own savings, she opened this bakery on this street. After graduating from university, the storefront wasn't big, but business was good. The neighbors all seemed so caring. They would always travel a long way to come here, buy some bread, and chat a little. It's not easy for a young girl to live alone. It's better now she has someone to help. Just looking at her is comforting. I bought bear prints. She was wearing an apron. I was clumsily packing freshly baked toast. Hearing these words didn't make my heart flutter. They're calling me a comforter. To a lazy person like me, who's so useless I can't even tell the difference between grains. How could they possibly think I was a comforter? But my presence had truly lightened her burden, at least in the heavy tasks like lifting sacks of flour and sugar. A small fragile girl like her no longer had to struggle through gritted teeth to do them. In the evening, the shop closed. We went back to the small apartment. Upstairs, if the phrase a house with nothing but 4 blank walls described his previous place, then this place could probably be considered a house. With one such wall, a dining table, 2 chairs, a sofa, and a small room, separated by a balcony. That was my bedroom. It was even smaller than the bathroom in my previous mansion, but I slept more soundly here than any other night in over 20 years. There was no conspiracy. There was no pretense. The breeze was just the sound of wheat rustling from down below. A faint scent wafted. I began to learn how to be an ordinary person, learning how to sweep without blowing dust everywhere, learning how to use a pressure cooker to make congee without blowing up the kitchen. Most of the time the results were terrible. I accidentally put salt instead of sugar and made a very salty red bean soup. He tasted it. His little face scrunched up, but he didn't spit it out. He just quietly drank a large glass of water. Then he picked up a pen and wrote in his notebook, "Taste, it's very unique. Next time you can use a little less Chinese." I saw his serious expression. I felt angry and laughed at the same time. I snatched the bowl and threw it in the garbage. From then on, I started learning sign language. I bought a stack of textbooks. Every night, I would wait until he fell asleep. In my small room, I would practice over and over again, looking at my phone screen. From the simplest phrases like hello, thank you, to you, worked hard today, and good night. The first time I asked him to say good morning, when I used some strange gestures to greet her, she froze. Then, in her usually serene eyes, it seemed as if a star had suddenly fallen. She was startlingly bright. She raised her hand and answered me very seriously. In that moment, I realized that in my past 20-plus years, I had never had a moment where doing something had felt as meaningful as it did now. Days just kept passing by. Slowly, everything started getting better. From a nerd who didn't even know how to use an oven, I became a baking apprentice who she could whip cream and make flowers with skill. Business at the shop continued to improve. We even took over the shop next door and expanded the storefront. I had a decent amount of money in my account again. I had enough savings to move out and rent a place somewhere else. Many times I felt like talking to Pig about it, but every time the words would come crashing down. Where would I go? What would I eat? Living alone is so boring. Besides, it's not easy for a young girl like her. I could help her. I made some excuses in my heart and stayed there quietly, so we never talked about it. It was as if she had silently accepted my presence. I don't believe in love. My father and my brother are prime examples, but the peace I found with Sue was addictive. I shook my head and dismissed these useless thoughts. It was almost noon. I had to go and prepare lunch for her. I was taking off my apron and getting ready to go upstairs, but then a familiar figure pushed the shop door open. The person who arrived wore a perfectly fitting business suit and had impeccable makeup. Her hair was neatly tied in a bun. Her entire personality exuded the aura of a successful person. It was Bing. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. The insecurity and helplessness that poverty had brought upon her had completely washed away. She was no longer the old-school beauty in a torn uniform begging for alms from me. Now she was so refined and perfect. Behind her was a young man in his 20s. He was wearing a suit and leather shoes. He looked like a recent male college graduate. His eyes were clearly filled with contempt for me. He must have been a male assistant. Binding's gaze lingered on my bare apron. For a moment, her eyebrows furrowed slightly, but she quickly regained her polite smile. Jiang Xiaoyu, long time no see. I nodded in greeting. I didn't stop taking off my apron. She wanted to ask something, but she felt it wouldn't be appropriate. Finally, she took a check from her bag and held it out to me. This is 1 million. I know there are still a few years left on our 10-year agreement, but I have the ability to repay now. So I'd like to repay you in advance. I looked at the number on the check, picked it up, and stuffed it in my pocket. Thanks. It's my right, although I never expected to get it back. The male assistant standing behind him saw how quickly I took the money. The hatred in his eyes grew even stronger. Binding quickly adjusted his expression. His gaze roamed our small bakery and finally landed on my face. She lingered. It was the same look I knew all too well. A demeaning sympathy. Xiaoyu, I heard about what happened to your family. If you don't have a suitable place to live right now, you can come to my company. My husband and I just started our company a while ago. We need people now. Seeing her deliberately conjured pitiful face made me nauseous. Back then, that transaction was an investment of mine. Now she's paying off the debt. We're equals. But now she's putting on this act. For her own sake, she wants to make the old creditor an object of pity, of her charity. I looked even more irritated at the male assistant standing next to her, and suddenly realized that she was enjoying saving others, just as I had enjoyed seeing her helplessness back then. Now she was also enjoying my downfall. The only difference is that she was even more of a hypocrite than me, having to put on a mask of being a good person. I refused curtly. There's no need. I'm perfectly fine. Here. A small froze on Bing's face. Gone. Don't be so irritable, Xiaoyu. I know what kind of life you lived before. I interrupted her. My voice was now clearly filled with impatience. I said, I don't need this. She finally stopped insisting. A trace of displeasure appeared on her beautiful face. Okay then. If you've already decided, I won't force you. As she turned, the male assistant standing behind her immediately took a step forward. Carefully, he reached out and gently supported her arm. Binding naturally bowed her head, and I gave her a smile that only the two of them could understand. In that moment, I pretended to casually pick up my phone and silently pressed the shutter button in their direction. The angle was perfect. The male assistant's hand was almost around her waist in the photo, and that smile on his face. Anyone who saw it wouldn't have thought it was a smile given to an ordinary subordinate. I picked up my phone and waved it at them. Take care. I'll drop you outside. Then I found her husband's public email address on the internet. It took 2.5 minutes to find it. Then I sent it anonymously. After doing all that, I deleted it from the sending history. My mood lightened considerably. I finished lunch quietly with Sui. My mind gradually calmed down. I leaned against the counter and started thinking about how to use this 1 million yuan. The number written on it was so clear it was a bit dazzling. It had been so long since I had seen so much money all at once. At least now our lives wouldn't be so tight, and that new equipment would be my priority. They'll come too, the one Sue always yearned for. The more I thought about it, the happier I became. I never imagined that 1 million could be so useful. Just then, the doorbell rang. A clear, but deliberately weak voice broke my reverie. Xiaoyu. I turned my head and looked at Luan. Oh, some old acquaintances are coming. Over today. If I remember correctly, you have some work to do. I stood, leaning against the counter. Expressionless. She frowned, too. Her glistening eyes were filled with tears. That look of wanting to say something but hesitating hit me. It was making me feel sick. Juan's voice was slightly complaining. I wanted to meet you. Second Miss Lu, what drama are you putting on now? I almost burst out laughing. Her eyes immediately turned red as if she had been wronged. Xiaoyu, I know I was very stupid before. I did many wrong things. I always thought I liked a passionate and stormy love. But now I understand that what I really want is a stable family. Her tone was sincere. Her eyes were filled with deep love. She raised her head. Those teary eyes stared at me intently, reflecting deep memories and love. Jiang Xiaoyu, let's start over. I know your current situation. My sister really did too much. But it's okay. I can support you. There was a hint of pity and charity in her tone. There it is again. The drama of the lost son returning, isn't it? But don't be mistaken. When did I ever start anything with you? I barely resisted the urge to roll my eyes. My thoughts went back a few years. We left. The wedding was grand and touching. She cried at the wedding and said I was the light of her life. The happiness she'd found by risking everything. At that moment, I was standing below the stage watching that idiot overcome with emotion and shedding tears. I had only one thought. This guy is gone as expected. Less than 2 years into the marriage, Lawan grew tired of him. As the passion faded and marriage became a daily routine, she naturally grew bored. Then, at the right time, a green tea boy appeared. Luckily, that poor guy was completely he wasn't useless. He kept the evidence against Lu Ru Wan because he wanted to save what little respect he had. Then, he disappeared. Such coincidences don't happen in the sky. My sister-in-law, Lu Qingshu, must have been behind this. Pulling my thoughts back, I saw Lu standing in front of me, still acting out her deep love. The smile on my lips deepened. Lu Ruwan, do you think all men are fools? Her expression froze. I began softly. Your husband's funeral. It was wonderful. I saw you crying hysterically on the news. It was heartbreaking to hear it, and it brought tears to my eyes. The only sad thing is, if I hadn't been in front of the hotel that night and seen a girl who looked like you getting into the elevator in arm with a handsome guy, I would have been devastated. Lu's face instantly turned pale. Oh, you're right. Looks like that handsome guy couldn't stay happy for long. He jumped off a building shortly after. Don't you get tired, Lawan? I took a step forward, staring straight into her trembling eyes, putting on a mask and acting every day. Aren't you disgusted by this? I forced her back. Finally, she slammed into the doorframe. Her whole body was shaking like a leaf in the autumn wind. You're talking nonsense. Her outwardly firm yet internally weak plea was so weak, it was as if she was gasping for breath. I didn't want to bother messing with her anymore. I wasn't afraid she would take revenge on me. A woman so obsessed with playing the role of a saint, she would never allow herself to lose her temper or become angry out of shame. Her image was more precious to her than her life. She had worn that mask for so long that it had become stuck to her face. She couldn't take it off now. Get lost. She ran as if she'd been forgiven and staggered out. Her back looked pitiful. As she left, the shop finally fell silent again. I breathed a deep sigh of relief. It felt as if I had released all the bad luck I'd accumulated over the past 5 years. Sue's soft footsteps echoed from the window. Sue came downstairs. She held a bowl of freshly made sweet soup. She came over and extended the bowl toward me. Her eyes asked what was wrong. I shook my head, indicating nothing. Sue gestured in sign language. Her expression was worried. But you don't look happy. I looked into her clear eyes and smiled. Without putting the bowl down, I gestured using my own slightly awkward sign language. I'm perfectly fine. She understood. A sweet smile lit up her face. The window sunlight streamed in and fell on us. Peace. After that day, I stopped caring about the affairs of that circle and cut off contact with them completely. Now I just want to live a good life with Sue. I want to run this little shop and live a quiet life. Every morning at 5:30 I would wake up half an hour before her to go downstairs and prepare the first batch of bread dough. When she came down, with sleepy eyes, the kitchen was already filled with the faint aroma of wheat. Hot water was also boiling. It was over. She would always be the first to say good morning to me in sign language. Then she would expertly tie her apron and start making today's desserts. We spoke very little, but our coordination was getting better. Sometimes, when the work was heavy, she would become so anxious that she would break out in a sweat. I would hand her a glass of ice water. When she took the glass, her fingers would sometimes touch the back of my hand. Cold, soft. I began to observe all her habits. Now she also had the ability to guess my thoughts. I didn't need to. Life was very satisfying. During the day, we ran the shop together. In the evenings, she taught me how to make more complex desserts. Sometimes we could talk for entire evenings without pen and paper. This understanding brought me comfort. I began to seriously consider a question. I wanted to marry her. I didn't believe in love, but I was beginning to believe that some people were made for each other. I just wanted to be with her like this forever. After 3 months, I confessed my feelings to her, and to be honest, I didn't love her. I proposed. It was her birthday. I secretly prepared a small surprise for her in the shop. When she came downstairs that evening, the entire shop was lit with candles. She was stunned at the top of the stairs and covered her mouth with her hands. I went up to her, got down on one knee, and took out a diamond ring. Sue, I don't know how to say beautiful words. I don't even believe in vows of eternal love, but I want to be with you and run this shop until we can no longer walk. Will you marry me? Will you? She started crying. Her tears were like broken pearls falling to the ground. She nodded her head frantically. Then she extended her hand so I could put the ring on her. The ring was a little loose. Her hand was very thin, but she clenched her fist to prevent it from falling. I hugged her. I smelled the faint fragrance of her hair. At that moment, I suddenly realized that the past 20+ years of my life had been a preparation for meeting her. Our wedding was very simple. The scale wasn't very grand. We invited only our neighbors. I invited some classmates I got along well with. I didn't think about any pretense. I just wanted to give Sue a proper wedding. The day before the wedding, I went to the barber shop to get a haircut and bought myself a nice suit. We had chosen Sue's wedding dress together. When she tried it on, she just glowed. I stood outside the fitting room, looking at her in the mirror. I suddenly felt a little unreal. This beautiful, angel-like girl was actually going to marry me. Everything went so smoothly on the wedding day. It happened. Sue's grandmother's health had improved considerably. She came to our wedding in a wheelchair. The elderly woman held my hand and said in a weak voice, "Thank you for taking care of our Xiao. I felt a little embarrassed. She's the one who takes care of me. Sue's hand was shaking as we exchanged rings. I held her hand and whispered something in her ear. Don't be nervous. It's just a ritual. She laughed a little. Her nervousness vanished immediately. Mr. Jiang Xiaoyu, will you accept Miss Sue as your wife? Do you do? In riches or poverty, in sickness or in health, to love and protect him. I do. Miss Sue, do you accept Mr. Jiang Xiaoyu as your husband? In riches or poverty, in sickness or in health, to love and respect him. Sue couldn't speak, but she nodded her head frantically. Then she used sign language to signal. I do. The officiant was a little surprised. He didn't know what to do. I smiled at him. I translated for her. I smiled at him. ISTA, I said she does. A thunderous applause erupted from below the stage. When it was our turn to kiss, she blushed a little. Her face was as red as an apple. I kissed her lips very lightly, very gently, as if I were afraid I might hurt her. Then I leaned close to her ear and said, "Mrs. Jiang, I'll wait for your guidance from now on." She laughed so hard in my arms that her shoulders shook. My classmates came over one by one to congratulate us. An old roommate I was very close to saw you. She said, "You've changed. You used to act indifferent to everything. Now you seem like a normal person." I looked at Sue talking to my grandmother and smiled. Maybe it's because now I have someone worth caring about. After the wedding was over, we returned to our house upstairs. Everything was the same, except for the bouquets and gifts from the wedding. Sue took off her wedding dress and changed into her everyday clothes. She made me a late-night snack in the kitchen. I stood in the kitchen doorway. I stared at her busy figure. I suddenly felt very satisfied. This is the life I want. Two people living a simple life. She brought snacks. She saw me lost in thought and waved her hand in front of my face. "What are you thinking about?" Her face turned red again, and she playfully hit me lightly. Then she wrote in her notebook, "Jiang Xiaoyu, we are married now. Do you have any regrets?" I shook my head. "No regrets." "And you have no regrets about me, either?" "That's it. It feels a little unreal, like I'm dreaming." I reached out and pulled her cheek. "Did it hurt?" She held her face and stared at me. Then she wrote in her notebook, "This is not a dream, and I love you." As Sue wrote those 3 words, her fingers trembled slightly in the dim yellow light. Her eyelashes were like butterfly wings wet in the rain. I stared at those words. Something tugged at my heart. It wasn't the thumping of a young school beauty's affection, not money. It wasn't the false satisfaction of being robbed. Instead, it was a deep, slow feeling, accompanied by a calm stability I'd never felt before. I took the pen from her hand. I closed the notebook and deliberately made a serious face. "Mrs. Jiang, it's quite late. Are you trying to give me a sleepless night by writing all this?" She began waving her hands frantically. Her face flushed with embarrassment, and she began to clumsily use sign language. "It's true." I sighed and pulled her into my arms. I took it. My chin rested on her silky hair. I knew the girl in my arms was completely calm. Her light breath brushed my neck. At that moment, I suddenly realized that the things I have now, like the Jiang family's wealth, Lu, Qing Shu, or Bing Bing, are more valuable to our